I am so excited for you guys to join me today. I want to thank you for watching. Today, I have with me Wendy Labat, Wendy Labat. And we actually got connected through LinkedIn. It's been some time ago. We actually were connected for, I think, when I first got on LinkedIn. She was one of my original connections, and we had never met each other until last year. And so I'm really excited to have her here today because we took that connection to a deeper level. We were able to work with different workshops together. We have lunch every once in a while, which we haven't had in forever. And just a joy to have someone in my corner and challenge me on a regular basis to be a better version of myself. So at this time, I'm going to give Dr. Wendy the floor for her to introduce herself before we get into the interview.
Hi, Lachelle, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful for you because, we, you got me started on this whole thing. So I said, look at me now.
That is
But I'm
amazing.
Dr. Wendy Labat, also known as the financial healer.
Mhm.
And I just added a new title to my library, which is basically best-selling author. So I'm like, yay! So I'm
Yay.
excited about that. I'm an entrepreneur, financial strategist, and a speaker. And I've been in business over 36 years. And my whole, I guess, approach now, I'm a breast cancer conqueror. So because
Mm.
I practice what I preach, all the expenses that I had to pay, medical bills and all that, I had coverage and I got a significant shot in the arm behind it that really kept me from being financially ruined. So I'm on a crusade now to empower other people to be in a better position so one illness or injury won't ruin them financially. So I'm
Awesome.
glad to be here. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So let's just show what the book looks like. All right.
Yay.
The Financial Cures. And so this is really a blessing to be able to, what was it that prompted you to have a book? Because a lot of people, like you said, you're on a mission to help people, but, just taking it a step further and putting it in a book.
Well, I really wasn't thinking about a book. A friend of mine, we're in a book club together, and she said, Wendy, you ought to write a book. It's like, I am not writing a book, girl, And then my media specialist kept saying, Wendy, you ought to write a book. It's like, I am not writing a book. But then she kept saying, okay, Wendy, it's time for the book, time for the book. And I kept, saying, okay, I eventually. But then about, what, 30, 45 days ago, I wrote a book. It didn't, I guess I spent more time dreading the idea than actually doing it, the project.
Mhm.
And I was so happy that it was launched. It was supposed to launch on the 30th of this month. And instead, it launched September 15th, which was like 2 weeks ago. And
Wow.
then within that first few days, it hit the bestseller in my two categories. And then a few days later, it was the #1 new release. And I'm like, I'm so excited. And I've been so excited ever since. I never thought that kind of incitement could come over me and stay over
Yes.
me this long. It's just that once I finished it, all the time I was writing, it's like, I can't wait to be done with this, can't wait. And now that I'm done with it, it's like, I'm ready for the next book.
That's
So,
awesome.
it's
Yeah.
been good. Yeah. I
Now, so
can't.
when you say, you had kind of those hangups that kind of prevented you from writing, what do you think that's about? Because there's a lot of people who, right now, they've had the time to reflect, they're trying to reinvent themselves, they have to, pivot and do different things in their industry. So, what do you think? What advice would you give them to write that book?
I would say just do it. I'm a good writer. I wrote a 200 and something page doctoral study. I know how to write, but I didn't
Mhm.
want another project. It's like, okay, I've got enough on my plate. I'm not trying to commit to writing a book. But once I started, doing my, little speaking and training, and people, especially in this time, people really needed the information in the book. They really need to learn how to take control of their finances, overcome the obstacles to winning the money game. And I said, well, I do have something to share. So once I put it on paper and, started reading it, put it out for a few other people to read before I actually published it. And everybody's like, okay, good, easy read, good information. Everybody got something out of it. So I said, well, it's time for me. This is part of my crusade. Instead of me just trying to do the one to many, verbally, now I can
Mm-hmm.
just get the book and people can, work at their own pace, get whatever they need out of the book. And then if they want additional assistance, I'm here for them. So I would just say do it, and don't get caught
Mm-hmm.
up on the whole process. And because I got caught up on, having it as another project, the process, and just dreading the idea. But it really wasn't bad. I mean, it was, like I said, I caused more pain for myself than was really there. So I'm like, okay, do it. Just do it. Like Nike says, just do it.
I love that. And so now how do you have a wealth of information. So we've had workshops together where you've talked about budgeting and ways that you can move forward, start small and build on that. So how were you able to kind of condense it and figure out what things are good for the book or, maybe your sequel or things like that? How do you know what goes in what?
Well, I developed what I call the financial cure system, which is a whole series of getting from where you are to where you want to be. So basically, this is the first step. The financial cures is the series and diagnose your financial health, because I kind of started doing everything off the medical theme. And it's basically because you have to know where you are, just like when you go to the doctor, they take your vital signs and ask about your symptoms, and you have to know where you are, what's the problem before you can fix it, before you can prescribe, a treatment to get better, to fix whatever the problem is. And it's not that complicated, but if you don't understand it, it can be. So I
I
basically
love
talk about,
that.
yeah.
I love that. And I love the blending art. That's something that I had to do as, with this title of America's Supermom. I was so busy trying to compartmentalize being a mom, doing my job, doing this. Now I'm just bringing it all together. So,
Mhm.
what are some key takeaways that, now with your story and how you've been able to be a conqueror of cancer? Would you tell somebody today, right now we're faced with this pandemic and people have loved ones that might be sick or things like that. So, what advice would you give them knowing what you know now and your experience when it comes to their health?
Well, it's a combination of things. There's six obstacles to winning the money game. And
Mm-hmm.
one of them is having the proper protection because, your health is your wealth. And I learned that firsthand. I was in the insurance business and financial services business, and I bought all this stuff just because I was trying to, do it from a business and marketing perspective. It wasn't because I was doing financial planning for myself or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But thank God I practiced what I preach, because 3 years later, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And once you lose your health, you can't get the life insurance. You can get health insurance, because at least for now, unless they eliminate the pre-existing illness clause. But
Mm-hmm.
that's a key thing. And you really, because I practice what I preach, I was able to be protected. So those $67,000 every 3-week chemo bills for a year were covered. That $300,000 in surgical, and I had 5 surgeries and then all the tests that go with it. It was covered by my health insurance. And plus, because I had the other supplemental coverage, I ended up getting a double 6-figure shot in the arm, which I thank the Lord every day,
Wow.
and because, usually people are struggling, they have, even if they have health insurance, 60% of people that file bankruptcy, it's because of medical bills. And then
Mhm.
80% of those folks have health insurance. So you have to understand that there's a cost to owning health insurance, and there's a cost to using it, and you have to know the difference. So,
Mm.
because I was in the business, I knew the difference. I had the best coverage. Minimal money out of my pocket for the astronomical bills that I had. And I just think that had I not had that, I would have been ruined financially because, who wants to not only have to pay those kind of expenses, but you also have your business and your personal expenses that are ongoing, whether you're sick or healthy. So it just eliminates that additional layer of stress, but it gives you that additional comfort and cushion that you need, whether you're going through a health crisis or not. So,
I
I'm
love
on a
that.
mission, on a crusade now because,
Hmm.
I was going to say, I was like, okay, I'm cool. I don't have to do nothing else. But God said, no, you're going to get out there. I got you through this journey to empower you to help others, get in a better position.
I love that. And so now you are back on the speaking track.
Mhm.
You have been speaking and on different stages to talk about your book and just, your own journey. And the first thing I would say is, how do you overcome that fear? So, as someone who has a pre-existing condition, they talk about, well, you got to be careful being out there, with the virus and your age and all that. So, talk to us about, what you're dealing with daily to overcome that and continue to thrive like you're doing.
Well, first I have trust in God, but I'm not
Hmm.
foolish. So I'm wearing the mask, I'm wearing the gloves, I'm social distancing. So I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do.
Hmm.
And, I just came from Denver and it was different because, sitting next to somebody, even though they weren't in the middle seat, you're still like, okay. And if somebody coughs or sneezes, like, okay, you're doing that. But I'm not too paranoid. But when I'm at home, I really don't go out. I may go out
Hmm.
once a week, once every 10 days just to handle my business. But I'm okay with that, because I don't have to be out. I'd rather not be out if I can help it. My car hasn't been anywhere in a while, so it has few miles on it since this whole pandemic. But just do what you're supposed to do and be, because you can't forget, because you can get out there and see other people without masks, which most of the time people are wearing, but there's always one or two that doesn't have it. But you do what you're supposed to do. You can't be responsible for other people's actions. So I just, do my part and pray to God. He's keeping his arms wrapped around me.
I love that. And I mean, that really is a testament because so many people, they just thrive on the news, what the news is saying, that becomes their reality and all these different things. So, what advice would you give people? Here you are, it's a pandemic, you are speaking, you've got a book done. How do you have this positive outlook? Because, it we got people talking about the debate, right? The debate happened last night. So it's like, what are we getting ourselves into? So all this like uncertainty, people don't have faith in some of the same things that they used to. So what advice would you give them about what your outlook is and how you're preparing for 2021?
Well, you have to understand that God is in control. My faith is in him. It's not in the president or the political system or none of that. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's not necessarily even in myself. I mean, I have faith in myself, but
Mhm.
I know the ultimate decisions, the ultimate timing is going to be his timing. So
Mhm.
I just make sure that I do what I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to fear and be paranoid because, hey, I've been through some things and I come out on that. Why am I going to worry about some other things? But I'm not going to be foolish either. And just that I know that what God has for me is for me and nobody else can take that away. I can rejoice in other people's, victories, and I pray that they rejoice in mine, but you can't block my blessing. Only I can do that. And I'm not going to do that. So I just know that when God gives you the provision, the vision, he gives you the provision to go with it. Whether it looks like it's there or not, it will be there. And I've got 36 years of business experience that has proven that time and time again. So
I love that. Now, and so this is a good thing to kind of explain to people because they do have that vision and they're not sure about the provision. So, if you could give us an example of something, a story to illustrate to people, because, maybe somebody's listening who they feel like they're clear about the vision, but they never really had that faith to believe in the provision part. So if an example would be really good for somebody.
Well, my story, which started 36 years ago, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be a medical doctor. So I didn't have a plan B, and, I didn't get accepted to medical school. So, I was crushed, but hey, I got over it. But like I said, God had a different plan for me. So I ended up, starting a business with no business experience, no money, at a time where there was no social media, no internet, and the only thing you can do with a cell phone was make an expensive call.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I went after corporate America as my clientele. And back then you had to have, the brick and mortar, the employees, the inventory, and everything, all the overhead that went with it to project a certain image so that you would be perceived as capable of handling the big contracts, which is what I was after. But
Mm-hmm.
the reality was my cash flow didn't match that facade. I mean, hey, I look successful. I look like I could handle it, but I didn't have the money. I didn't have the credit with my vendors to the level of getting the big contracts and satisfying them. But because I was enjoying what I was doing. I wasn't making any money, but I loved what I was doing. But I had made money before and hated what I was doing. So it
Mm.
was just showing me that, hey, it's not don't worry about the money. Just enjoy yourself. And I did. And I had just come out of divorce. I was really happy to be happy doing something that I enjoyed doing. So as things came along and opportunities came along, the provisions came along. So it's like it wasn't out of my doing because I didn't know what I was doing, but God put the right people in front of me. He put the right opportunities in front of me, and he kind of led me to, accept them. At first, I wasn't as spiritually mature then as I am
Mm-hmm.
now, but in hindsight, it was just, God putting those provisions in front of me. Sometimes there were times when I had opportunities and I'm like, Lord, how am I going to do this? How am I going to make it? I had payroll to meet, and, I didn't have the funds to pay, my employees, but when payday came around, the money was there. So, just have faith and step out on that faith and follow your spirit, because you'll know, some people say it's intuition, but whatever it is, follow it, because when you get that nudging saying go in this direction, go in that direction, because that's where your blessing is going to be. And there are a lot of times I used to say, damn, I should have said, went there, something told me to do that. And all that time, when you start getting that feeling, do it. Don't be questioning it, be obedient right away, because you'll find yourself saying, oh, I woulda, coulda, shoulda, and
Mm.
you don't have to. So that's
I
my
love
thing.
that.
If it's pulling on you like that, then follow it.
That's good. I really like that concept because, a lot of people are in that space of thinking, they think they have to manipulate everything.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, I want to do this. And so a lot of work goes into trying to create the right experiences in order for that to be, rather than resting in whatever it is they're supposed to be well versed in and letting the other moving parts, manifest on their own, or at the appropriate time, as you say. So
Mhm.
for somebody who is in that space where they're just like, man, what can I do today to kind of begin to change my mindset, about even like opportunities,
Mhm.
so I know that even when these opportunities came about, they end up being bestsellers and all these things, but people don't really see that they don't come to you that way. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? It's like
Mhm.
you have to do the work to do the book, to do this, but so how somebody can really kind of be open and know what an opportunity looks like, because end up coming into life to be something than what they start out with. Does that question make sense?
It does, and you have to be flexible, because just
Mm-hmm.
like for me with the book, when they were saying writing, it wasn't that I didn't want to write a book. I just knew that it wasn't time for me to write a book, because I was like, okay, I'm not writing a book because that's not, my spirit's not leading me there. But when the time, and even when my PR person kept saying, you ought to write a book, you ought to write a book. Wendy, it's time to write that book. It's like, well, when the time is right, I'll know it. It's not right now. And then when the time became right, it just popped out, it just birthed. I knew
Mhm.
all the thoughts came into play, all the strategy, all the everything, the content, it all came together. So you just have to, don't try to force things, but don't neglect opportunities when they're there and you know that that's what you're supposed to be doing. And you'll know it, because if you don't do it, you'll be kicking yourself in the butt saying, dang, I should have done that. So, just understand, just be flexible. Don't be so rigid with your plan that you can't accept the real plan that you're supposed to be executing.
I love that. I mean, just like you said, hey, you wanted to be in the medical field, and God had a different plan. Still being able to use those skills, talents, and ways to network and everything. So, um, I guess I would conclude in asking about networking. How is it? What is a good strategy for somebody to have? Because we did that workshop, it was what, a year ago, and now fast forward to a year later, you've been on other people's stages, and you've got your book, and have traveled and been a part of different collaborations. So what are a few tips that you could give somebody about networking and how to accomplish what you've done?
Well, like I said, I'm old school. So back in the day, it was physical network. You show up at everything. And my mentor told me that when you come to go to different events, people need to, you need to walk out and as many people in the room know who you are, what you do, and how to get in touch with you. So I still, I use that philosophy today. But, my PR person says, Angel Tussey, you know her. She said,
Mm-hmm.
other people, she used to say OPP until she found out there was a song called OPP. Now it's yeah, so it's other people's audiences. So you take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of, spreading your message on other people's audiences or with other people's audience. And that's how you get out there, because now everything's virtual. So you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
physically go like we did back in the day. I said there was
Mm-hmm.
no social media, there was no internet. So you showed up and, it's sort of like boots on the ground. But now it's the same philosophy, but more virtual. And it's
Mm-hmm.
fun. I kind of miss the, live stuff, and it's coming back. But the virtual is an opportunity. You don't even have to be on other people's platform. You just be on your own Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that, because that's how we met, with LinkedIn. And,
Mm-hmm.
like I said,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't really know each other at first, didn't meet each other in person, but we developed a relationship. And that's what it's
Mm-hmm.
all about, developing a relationship with other people. And it's not to take advantage of them or anything, but it's just to, like I said, network, exchange ideas, exchange contacts, put people together, because that's what it's all about. It's helping people. If you've got a resource, sow the seed, because you'll reap
Mm.
the harvest. So that's my philosophy: sow the seed, reap the harvest. So
I love that.
that's
Yeah.
what I recommend.
All right. And so the book is The Financial Cures, Diagnose Your Financial Health. And what is the best way for everybody to get a hold of you?
Okay, well, you can contact me. I've got a text opt-in. If you want to get
Mm-hmm.
a complimentary 20-minute strategy session, especially once you've read the book, you
Mm-hmm.
can text the word TALK, TALK, to 770-796-4944. That's
Okay.
TALK to 770-796-4944. And you can get the book on Amazon.
Awesome. And then what final words do you want to leave everybody with?
Well, I just want people to know that it's going to get better, and it doesn't have to be bad now. There are folks that, yeah, they've gotten the COVID, they've lost folks, and relatives and loved ones because of the disease. But just know that everything's in God's hands and things work out for the good of those who love him. And no matter how bad it looks, it all turns out for the better.
Love that. Great advice. Can't make it without God. That's one of my definite strong pillars in my life. So, you guys, great book, wealth of information, The Financial Cures, Diagnose Your Financial Health, and reach out to Wendy. This is just a great opportunity for you to get that help that you need. Like she said, she's willing to do that. Opportunity for you to talk with her and kind of diagnose where you're at. It's very important. So we want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you again, Wendy, for coming on and sharing your insight and wisdom with the audience. And we will see you all the next time. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for having. Bye bye.
Bye.